Thank you. I want to thank Bakerburg Community Church for inviting me out here tonight. Is that better? Okay. Is that better? All right, we'll stick it right in there. If I get spit on this, don't be offended. Anyway, thanks for everybody inviting me here. Bakerburg Community Church. I want to thank the fire hall. My uncle Tom, was fire chief out in Warren County for many years. He died a few years ago from cancer, but I have some very fond memories of the fire hall, so I feel like I'm at home. I want to also say that I want to thank the Criners for putting this together. I think this is mostly their responsibility. I know a lot of work goes into getting everything prepared, set up, printed, announced, and everything else. Scott Ingrid, thanks for having me and bringing me up here, Scott, from the airport. And we've known Scott and Joe and Ingrid and Mary for a long time, probably 25 plus years now. I guess so, because we've been married 25 years. So we used to come up here to Doc Mark's place and do some ride the sleds, get snowed in, carry on, get in trouble, hurt ourselves, shovel snow, cut wood, did a lot of things. So a lot of really good memories. So really glad to be here tonight. It's a little warm, so if you see me picking at my shirt, it's because I'm sweating. When I first saw this platform, I was a little nervous. I understood that Scott built it. I said, what if it falls? He says, what's the worst that could happen? I was hoping there was going to be some more people here that I knew, but it was nice getting around and shaking some hands and getting to know some of you. Really nice group of people, nice community here. And the food was fantastic. You really ought to give a round of applause to yourselves for such a great meal tonight. It was really good. Appreciate it. So before we get into the meat of the message, anyone who can, I'd like everybody to stand up. We're going to play the standing game. This is really simple. I mean, except for me, it's really simple. All you have to do is stay standing if this applies to you. Okay? So I'm going to start off with a really easy one. Okay? So I ate something for breakfast or lunch today. You can stay standing. That's good. Everyone ate. That's good. No one sat down. Everyone got it. That's good. Now, I want to give the ladies a break, so the next one is mostly for you men. The world is your urinal. Does that make sense?
That means they can go anywhere they want.
Thank you, ma'am. Give that lady a door prize right now.
I hope it was you guys.
Yeah, you talk there. Now, if that didn't wipe out most of the women here, I'm sorry. So this one might. Chocolate is not just another snack. Okay. Now,
I knew it.
stay standing if you have never shaken hands with our current president. No. Wait a minute. Stay standing if you've never shaken hands. It has to apply to you. Stay standing if you've never. All right, so I didn't think I would get anybody here. Besides, if anyone had an opportunity to shake hands with our current president, they probably would be locked up in a jail right now. As I would. Okay. Now, stay standing. If you've ever missed a chance to shoot a deer because you were eating in the stand or relieving yourself.
Yeah, I can sit down.
All right, now.
I never missed it. I'm always.
Have a seat if you talk more than your significant other, if you're a man. If you're a man. If you talk more than your wife or girlfriend. All right? Sit down if you shot a rifle with a larger caliber than a .30-06. Larger caliber than a .30-06, sit down. Now, see, I couldn't. That's good. Okay.
300 was bad.
Sit down if you are an adult over 40, you have kids, and you still drive the car that you drove in high school. Alright? You sit down if you've read through the entire Bible at least once.
Okay.
Alright? There's still got some contestants here. This is great. Alright? Okay. So sit down if you caught at least one fish every time you've gone fishing.
I'd have to.
Every time.
I would stand back.
Now wait a minute. That means you have never got skunked.
Yeah.
Never been skunked.
Ivan, can you back up?
Got a few. Okay. Sit down if you've never shaken a hand with a paralyzed person.
Here's your chance to run up.
Okay. You sit down if you've taken a Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young class. Wild game. Deer, bear, doesn't matter. Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett. All right? Okay. Sit down if a 5-day vacation requires only one suitcase. Sit down if you can do your nails with a pocket knife.
Hey, say if you're a bullshitter, like sit down.
Have a seat. That should be good enough for tonight. All right. I was hoping I'd get more of the ladies out of during the first few questions, but since I didn't, that's what. Oh, anyway. All right, so I did see there's quite a bit of difference between men and women, and these are some things. Now, when it comes to money, a man will pay $2 for a $1 item. A woman will pay $1 for a $2 item because it's on sale. Not that she needs it, because it's on sale. So that's one thing I found about the difference between men and women. In the bathroom, a man has 6 items. A towel, a razor, shaving cream, and soap, and toothpaste, and toothbrush. A woman has 337 items. A woman has 337 items, and a man can only identify about 20 of them. In arguments, a woman has the last word in every argument. Anything a man says after that is beginning a second argument. Future. A woman worries about the future until she gets a husband. A man never worries about the future until he gets a wife. Marriage. A woman marries a man expecting he will change, but he doesn't. A man marries a woman expecting she won't change.
And she doesn't.
Ingrid's laughing. So the call for today, a married man should forget his mistakes. There's no reason 2 people should be remembering the same thing. Finally, does anyone know why God created Adam first? give him a chance to say something. That's one of my favorite jokes, by the way. You know, I wanted to become a stand-up comedian, but that didn't turn out too well. I was married to my wife, Jill, in 1989, August 1989. August 12th, 1989. Too bad she's not here to see me remember that. That would have been good. But she supports my hobbies. I like to hunt and fish, and I'm thankful for that. She's a good woman. She likes to fish, but I can't get her out there in the woods to hunt. Not only because I couldn't get her up in a tree, but I don't think she likes to snuff the life off out of a living creature, and I understand that. It's not for everybody. In 1993, it worked good. In 1993, I had the privilege of meeting a fine couple when I was at the Jersey Shore. We rented a small place from them with some other friends, and they happened to have a summer house that they'd rent out to some, but during the winter months they lived in Paoli, which is in Chester County, near King of Prussia, or Valley Forge, and they had too many deer on their property. So I said, well, if you need some help with your deer problem, I think you can twist my arm enough that I could come down and help out. Don't bring any guns. Don't want any guns. There's a lot of houses around, but you can bring your bow. So Morton Libby, they invited me to come down, and I got a chance to meet them. And I went down on their property, and there literally were houses everywhere. It's a small subdivision. Everybody had about 3 acres, and they all backed up to each other. There's a ravine behind there, and a creek at the bottom. And the deer lived happily in there. And I scouted it out, found some likely places to set up. And one night, I got myself up in a tree, and I was about ready to come down. We've all been there before. You stay to the last hint of light because you just know that deer's going to come. I was about ready to come down, and I heard some noise, and here comes a deer. But it came in a direction I wasn't expecting it, worked the scrape right underneath me, walked off, and all I could tell was it was a buck. 2 days later, I had another opportunity to go out to the same spot, and I moved my tree stand about 80 yards in the direction that it came from, hoping that I would get a chance to see this deer. Following all the normal protocols, got my tree stand up there, waited patiently while some kids were playing basketball behind me. On the other side of the ravine, up through the woods, some guy's banging on his lawn tractor, banging and banging. I'm like, this is not hunting, this is not hunting. And the only thing nature-wise that was down there other than myself and the acorns falling from the tree were a few squirrels. But I knew there were deer in there, it's just hadn't had a chance to see any. So got closer to dinner time, everyone went in for dinner, and I finally felt like I was hunting again. It was quiet, woods were quiet, just the birds, just the squirrels. And I hear the noise of a deer approaching. And I had it set up perfectly. I had this brush pile over here, creek was on the other side, and I thought the deer was bedding in some tall grass behind this house to my right. And while I sat there and waited as the noise got louder, I knew I should be able to see this deer. And I looked really hard, couldn't see a thing. Nothing was moving, and I had a funny feeling, and I looked the other direction, and coming up the trail on the left side, here comes this deer. Now, we've all had buck fever. It's a great feeling when you get it because you know a deer's coming. It's a bad thing when you're actually trying to put the crosshairs or your pin on a buck. But this time, I was really calm. I looked at the deer. I saw it was a shooter buck. I passed up some smaller deer before, and I saw this one was a shooter buck. And I just settled in. I realized, okay, I'm just going to make a shot on this deer. The deer walked up from my left, presented a perfect broadside shot. I put the crosshair, or my pin, 20-yard pin on that deer. And when I released the arrow, I felt really good about my shot. Arrow disappeared, and the deer just kept walking. Now, I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced with my bow. I could take the butt off of a gnat at 20 yards with my bow. I was shooting really good. And I saw the path of the arrow. It was a little bit dark, but I thought for sure I had made a good shot on this deer. But it did not flinch. That deer just kept walking. And it stopped right in front of that brush pile. I was expecting them to come through. And just stood there. And I'm looking for blood pouring out of this thing. I'm looking for him to start weaving back and forth and doing something. He's not doing a thing. So I had to assume I missed the deer. So I start reaching for another arrow. I start knocking another arrow, and the deer starts walking up through the brush pile. Now he's out of range. He's gone. Crosses the creek, and he's standing about 70 yards on the other side of the creek from me, and I have my bow, and I'm like, maybe not, I don't know. No, 70 yards is completely irresponsible. So I just watch it. All of a sudden, that deer starts to kind of rock back and forth like this. He rocks back and forth a couple times. He goes down on his haunches, and then his head kind of does like this, and he rolls over, gives a moan, and I had brush burn coming down out of the tree. Because I could see the back of this deer while he was going through this process. I realized this was a pretty nice buck. And when I got up to the deer, and I saw what kind of deer this was, I couldn't believe it, because I'd never seen a deer this big in my life. And I certainly didn't know a deer of this magnitude lived back here behind all these houses, eating their arborvitaes and daisies and whatever they eat. So when I got up to that deer, and I saw what it was, I immediately started jumping up and down. And no one was there really to share it with me, because I was hunting on private property and I didn't have anybody with me. So I went up to the house of the people who allowed me to hunt there, and I knocked on the door, but they weren't home. So now I had a problem. I was driving a citation at the time. I might as well have been driving a motorcycle. So, yeah, and the hill to get down onto where I was hunting and to get this deer out was really steep. So I knew I was going to need help. So I debated on what I was going to do. I didn't have a cell phone. This was 93. Did they have cell phones back then? I didn't have a phone. So I went to the neighbor's house directly across the driveway, and I knocked on the door, and I'm like, okay, I'm standing here in all this camouflage. I'm in this affluent neighborhood in King of Prussia. I'm like, they're going to open the door. The police are going to come. I'm going to be in jail. Someone's going to take my deer. I thought it was going to be really bad. But this nice lady answered the door, and she was alarmed at first. But I put on my nicest smile. I was very polite, and I told her the situation. She goes, "Oh, Libby told me you were hunting back here. Let me bring the phone to you." She wasn't quite ready to let me in. So she had a cordless phone, and she brought it out to me, and she saw I was in the same position. I hadn't brought up any big hatchets or knives or chainsaws. So she felt a little more comfortable. She let me stand on the rug just inside the door, I guess maybe so I didn't make off with her phone. But so I call a friend, and I'm standing there, and I said, well, he's about 40 minutes away. It's going to be a while. So while I'm waiting there, her kids are coming out, and she's nervous. She doesn't want them to get murdered. So they're coming out wanting to talk to me, and she kind of gets talking. The husband comes home, so she relaxes a little bit. And before you know it, I'm having pizza with the family. And I'm telling them about this deer, and the boy wants to go down and see me gut this thing, because he's in biology class, and he wants to learn about organs. So he wants to go down. She wasn't quite ready to allow that to happen, but The worst part of the evening was when the neighbor came over. The neighbor was a member of PETA. When that woman saw this guy standing in her neighbor's house, or sitting, having pizza in her neighbor's house, and in camouflage clothes, she could about bored a hole right through me with her stare. She just about wanted to kill me. But she started grilling me, and I was very calm, and I explained to her, I really don't like killing animals. I said, I really enjoy the hunt. I like getting out in the woods. I like seeing the animals. I said, I won't kill something unless I'm going to eat it. She never heard anything like that before. She just thinks hunters are out there just slinging lead and running stuff over with their pickup trucks, pulling racks off of deer and stick them on their windshields. She didn't have a clue that some guy that is a chemist enjoys getting out in the woods. Is that you, Jeff? You do that? Some guy's a chemist, enjoys being out in God's creation, just seeing the beauty and having an opportunity of seeing a deer and outwitting a critter in its own environment. So she left that house that night with a completely different opinion of what hunting is. And I'm really happy that happened. I mean, I was more happy I shot the deer, but I was happy that I was able to leave an impression on somebody who clearly had some very bad impressions of hunters. So I think it's important that we take opportunities like that to be polite to people, even though they might be from a position we don't necessarily agree with. So this deer in '93 was 5th in the state with a bow. It's now 70th. It's fallen that far that fast. And the reason that is because more development, you're entrapping deer in areas where people don't hunt. And so the deer are allowed to get big. So the moral of the story is, go hunt in the suburbs behind your neighbor's house, because there's likely a big old buck there, unless they're hunting. Right? So deer dressed out at 230 pounds. And we had an unofficial scale. The next day, we took it to the butcher's. He put it on his official scale, and it was correct. It was 230 pounds, dressed, completely dressed. No lung and liver in there. It was completely dressed. And the wildlife biologist came around to the butcher's. It was 2 days after that, and he aged that deer 2.5 years old. So the previous slide, if you look at it, if you ever age deer, I don't know if you've ever aged deer, but you know how their snouts get longer as they get older? See how short that deer's face is? He does look like a tuna, like one of these 16-year-old 6'3" kids walking around. He just had the genetics, and he had plenty of food. I guess they grow great on people's flowers. It must be full of protein. I don't know. But the deer grew really well there. I don't know what that thing would have looked like at 5. I don't care. He's on my wall. But very proud of that deer. Proud of the opportunity. My wife and I struggled through a lot of trouble having kids, and we had several miscarriages, ectopic pregnancy, and everything. We ended up adopting a couple kids. We have a 16-year-old daughter, Rachel, and an 8-year-old son, Jacob. Jacob just turned 8 about 2 weeks ago. Both of my children have special needs. My son, he's got a learning disability. My daughter, she needs a car, she needs a cell phone, and she needs a pillow. Some people are relating to that in there, I see. We moved to Georgia about 16 years ago now with a job opportunity. I used to work here at Roman Haas down there, Bluebell, which is near Valley Forge. And it was a tough transition going from Pennsylvania down to Georgia. My fear was the deer were all going to be this big, and it was just tough, being far away from family. So the transition was a little rough. But we got around the accents and the culture and the lack of family and friends, finding a church. We got through all that, and we did pretty well. And in less than a year, we adopted Rachel, started building a house, and I had to do some traveling and stuff like that. But the hard part for me was at time for moving down there. That year I didn't get to hunt. The following year, we started building a house. I didn't get to hunt then. So I was kind of out of the game for a while. But I was seeing deer around the property, so I'm clearing land. We bought some land to build a house on. And I was seeing sign. I was looking at some rubs, scrapes, and stuff. And I'm cautiously optimistic. The deer didn't look too small. None of them had collars on, tags dangling, or barked or anything. So I was, feeling pretty good about things. And I started to hunt, and archery hunt. That first year I shot us, just deer for meat. That was good. Literally right behind the house. I couldn't have been more than 50 yards off our back porch. And year after that, I shot another one, and I, was kind of exploring more. When you get to new property, it takes you a while to get all the nooks and crannies worked out, figure the deer patterns and everything. So I was starting to get a little more comfortable with the land and looking around, and saw a few nice bucks. Had a couple run underneath my tree that were chasing does, and now I'm feeling a little bit more acclimated. This is deer here are similar to like they are in Pennsylvania, and so I was getting excited about things. And it was my daughter's 4th birthday. It was October the 16th, and it was a great time. My daughter and I have a great relationship and everything, especially when they're little. Little girls are the best. They're the greatest. Then they turn into teenagers. Why? God, why? Why? I mean, they're just so great when they're little. And see that? See? But at 4, they're still just so great. They haven't gone through that whatever thing. They say whatever all the time, and they roll their eyes. But anyway, so Rachel had her 4th birthday. We had a great time, new home. And it was the following, about that time, it was that year I had really gotten a good lay of the land. And so I had some good key spots. I had one permanent stand up on the neighbor's property. It's probably a good 1,000 yards from the house. And I was hunting that tree stand, and I had some does come out, and they were feeding right underneath me. And this was probably the first week in November, so things were starting to get a little warm, if you know what I mean. And all of a sudden, they start looking behind them, and the direction I was facing, I couldn't see the direction that they were looking. But all of a sudden, one doe starts shooting by me, and I'm like, here comes a buck. Then another doe shoots by me. He's coming. So I get my bow up, got my release on, turn to my left, and I'm waiting for him to come into view. Another doe comes blitzing past me. Finally, there's a doe standing right here, and I said, when he finally gets to her, I'm going to let him have it. So I have my bow ready, and this really red-colored deer. I nicknamed him Cinnamon after this day. This buck comes walking right up to this doe, nose straight out. You've seen it before. Nose straight out. He's sniffing, looking for a willing mate. And, of course, she takes off. She's not ready. And they run right underneath my tree together, and they run off. I don't see him the rest of the night. And that's fine. At least I saw him. He's a coping young class deer. The following week, it's a miserable week. I couldn't come out hunting at all. So following week, I hunted down in another area. I saw him again, but he saw me first. That was bad. See, that was one of those things where your alarm goes off. You want to get out of bed. You really want to get out of bed, but you don't get out of bed. So half an hour later, you finally get out of bed. So now you're getting your stand. The sun's already starting to peek up. You're climbing your tree. I look over, and there's Cinnamon looking at me about 40 yards away. Like, you fool. If you're going to shoot me, you got to get up when your alarm goes off. So he walks, he didn't run, he just walked off, laughing at me the whole time. So I was going to get that deer. And so it was the following week. Oh, first I'm going to look at the date on this. I shot this big buck on November the 15th, 93. So it's exactly 9 years later to the day. It rained all week. This is the following Saturday. Rained all week, or rained all day. I couldn't get out in the morning, so I was going to do some chores. So I'm in the basement putting some stools together that the wife wanted around the island in the kitchen. I'm building these stools. My daughter's getting into stuff. My daughter's getting into more stuff. And I'm kind of irritated because I can't, it's November 15th. You got to be in the woods on November the 15th, right? The deer are, you cannot sit in the house. I'm coming out of my skin. Putting these stools together. Well, I'm looking outside every 5 minutes. Sure enough, around 4:20, the rain stops. I tell my wife, I'm going home. Now, we all know 4:20 is not the most optimal time to be getting out in the woods. But I looked at it this way. If I could get to a tree close to my house, it will be a short walk. So I won't be, you rationalize it. You guys all do this. I know you do it. You know you shouldn't go, but you have to go hunt. You're going to go hunt. It's late. No, I'm going to go. I'm just going to go to a close spot, this funnel right down behind my house, about 300 yards away. And it's quiet because it's been raining all day, so I'm not going to make a bunch of noise in the leaves. So I'm going to go. So my wife and I had this thing. Every time I go hunting, she says, when are you going to be back? And I say, a little bit after dark. And then if I don't come back a little bit after dark, it's normally because I'm dragging a deer hunter. Because I'm just such a stud hunter. So, that was a joke. So, I grab my gear and as fast as I can, I shoot up over the bank, go down into the woods. Rain's still dripping off the trees, so it's plenty noisy, so I figure I can mask my sound getting into the woods. And typically, when the deer move through this funnel behind my house, they're moving from property off to the other side of the way here, this direction, and they're moving this way to come up into the woods behind my house. So I'm kind of getting into an intercept position for these deer that I expect to be coming. If the bucks are going to be running does, this is the direction they're going to be coming. That's the way I've seen them all the time before. So I start going down in the woods, and it's getting dusk already, so I grab a tree, look for a tree. Now, I'm a cheap guy. I didn't have a lot of money at the time to be buying nice equipment. So I only had the bottom part of a climbing tree.